Everyone is drowning in car payments for SUVs that start falling apart the second the warranty ends. Meanwhile, forgotten minivans sitting ignored on backlots for under $6,000 are still cranking past 200,000 miles. Today we are counting down 7 of them, and the toughest one could outlast an SUV costing 5 times as much. Let's dig in. Starting things off, in the caution zone, at number 7 is the Nissan Quest. Now, before you roll your eyes, hear me out. The Quest gets a bad reputation, and honestly, some of that reputation is earned. Nissan absolutely botched the 3rd generation when it first launched, and according to research from Copilot, the model years spanning 2004 through 2007 are considered, and I quote, the worst Quests ever built. Engine stalling, rough transmission shifts, peeling paint, the whole miserable checklist. So why is this thing even on our list? Because Nissan actually fixed it, and almost nobody noticed. By the time you get to the 2008 and 2009 model years, Copilot's research shows powertrain complaints basically evaporate. One write-up bluntly says it is almost impossible to believe. The 2009 Quest shares mechanical DNA with the earlier models. That is your window. 2008 and 2009 Quests are the sleeper pick of this entire list, and because the nameplate carries so much baggage, you can regularly find one sitting under $6,000, sometimes well under it, while a comparable Odyssey or Sienna from the same era gets snapped up in a day. If you want the redesigned, boxier 4th generation Quest instead, aim for 2015 through 2017 and steer clear of 2011 and 2012, which re-revs research flags for faulty transmissions and electrical gremlins. Here is the weak point you need to check before buying, no exceptions. The 3rd generation Quest has a documented issue with its panoramic sunroof glass. According to newparts.com, improper tempering and thinner glass on certain units meant the sunroof could literally shatter without warning, and it was significant enough to end up in court. It is not a deal breaker if the van you're looking at already had it addressed, but you absolutely want to inspect that glass and ask about service history before handing over cash. You will also want to listen for a rattling timing chain on cold start, a known nuisance on this generation according to multiple owner forums. So, why does it actually last? 2 reasons. First, the powertrain and much of the chassis is shared with the Nissan Murano and Pathfinder, which means parts are everywhere and cheap. Second, once you're past those cursed 2004 through 2007 years, the Quest becomes a genuinely quiet, car-like, comfortable minivan that just keeps rolling. There's another number worth shouting about too. According to EPA Fuel Economy ratings, the 2009 Quest returns 20 city and 27 highway miles per gallon, respectable numbers for a V6 minivan hauling 7 people, and Carfax's used vehicle history data shows a solid chunk of these 3rd generation Quests carry just 1 previous owner on record, meaning a lot of what's out there hasn't been through fleet or rental abuse. Buy the right year though, because the wrong year on this list is a genuine gamble. Speaking of gambles that Chrysler somehow turned into a winning hand, our next entry might surprise you. Sliding in as secret twins, at number 6, Chrysler Town and Country. Here is the thing about the Town and Country nobody talks about. It got absolutely crushed by depreciation, which sounds bad until you realize that means an incredibly well-engineered minivan is now sitting on lots for pocket change. The sweet spot here is the 2008 through 2010 model years. Why that specific window? Because Chrysler was running either the 3.8-liter Phi-6 or the 4.0-liter Phi-6 paired with conventional automatics before the infamous transmission control module disaster hit later models. According to Automotive Fleet's recall coverage, Chrysler had to recall over 26,000 2015 and 2016 model year Town and Country and Grand Caravan vans because the transmission pump could literally seize and cause a total loss of power while driving. That is terrifying on a highway. So we're deliberately skipping straight past that mess and pointing you toward the older, simpler pre-TCM drama trims instead. Because these vans are so unfashionable now, you can regularly find a 2008 through 2010 Town & Country for well under $6,000 often in the $3,000 to $5,000 range depending on mileage and condition. That is insane value for a vehicle that can seat 7, swallow a full sheet of plywood with the seats folded, and still be driving strong a decade and a half later. The weak point to inspect is the 62 TE6 speed transmission, or the earlier 4-speed depending on trim. According to National Transmission's repair breakdown, this unit has well-documented failure points, and torque converter issues are the most common complaint among longtime owners on forums like ChryslerMinivan.net. One owner there described a torque converter failure at just 36,000 miles, so a pre-purchase transmission fluid check and a look at service records is non-negotiable here. So why does it last regardless? Because millions of these were built on a platform Chrysler refined for over 3 decades. The V6 engines are genuinely tough workhorses, and parts availability is through the roof since every Dodge and Chrysler dealer and independent shop in America has seen a dozen of these come through the door. One more reason to love this era. According to IIHS crash test data, the 2008 through 2010 Town & Country earned a good rating in the moderate overlap front test, a strong showing for a minivan from that period, and NHTSA's frontal crash rating sits at 4 out of 5 stars, so you're not sacrificing safety to save thousands of dollars. Simple, proven, and cheap to keep alive. Okay, real talk for a second. If this kind of deep dive into which used vehicles are actually worth your money is useful to you, do me a favor and hit that subscribe button right now and drop a comment telling me which minivan on this list surprised you the most. It genuinely helps this channel keep making videos like this. Now let's talk about the Town & Country's slightly more rugged sibling. Rolling in with a warning label. At number 5 is Dodge Grand Caravan. The Grand Caravan and the Town & Country share the same bones, the same engines, and unfortunately, some of the same drama. For this pick, we're recommending the 2012 through 2015 model years specifically, which use the Pentastar 3.6-liter 4.6, widely regarded as one of Chrysler's genuinely successful engine designs. Avoid the 2016 model year like the plague. According to SlashGear's breakdown of this exact recall, the 2016 Grand Caravan and its Town & Country twin were part of a recall where the transmission pump may seize, causing a loss of hydraulic pressure, which can lead to total motive power loss while you're driving down the road with your kids in the back seat. That is not a minor inconvenience. That is a genuine safety concern, and it is exactly why this van is not sitting higher on our list. Stick to the 2012 through 2015 range, and you will typically find these vans priced aggressively, often comfortably under $5,000 once mileage climbs past 100,000. Because the Grand Caravan has always been marketed as the budget option, next to the Town & Country's slightly nicer trim levels, resale values have absolutely collapsed, which works entirely in your favor as a buyer. The weak point is, once again, that 62 TE transmission. Repair. PAL estimates the average annual repair cost on a 2016 model at $564, and while that is not outrageous, the transmission pump and torque converter are the components you want a mechanic to physically inspect, not just a dashboard. Warning light check. Ask specifically whether the transmission recall was completed if you're looking at a 2015 or 2016 model, and honestly, if it wasn't, just walk away and find a 2013 instead. Why does it last when properly maintained? The Pentastar 5.6 has proven itself across millions of Chrysler, Dodge, and Jeep products, and the Grand Caravan's simple front-wheel drive layout, with a huge production run, means any independent mechanic in America can diagnose and fix it without special tools or a factory scan tool subscription. Worth noting too, according to Dodge's own archived spec sheets, the Grand Caravan's stow-and-go seating system, which lets the second and third row seats fold flat into the floor, remained largely unchanged mechanically across this generation, so even a well-used example should still fold and latch just as smoothly as the day it left the factory. It is basic transportation done right, at a price that makes new SUV shoppers weep. But if you thought Korean minivans couldn't hang with the big boys, wait until you see what's coming in at number 4. Quietly climbing next is the Kia Sedona. The Sedona has spent 2 decades being the minivan people forget exists, which is exactly why it belongs on this list. Our recommended window is the 2013 and 2014 model years, right in the heart of the second generation. Why not newer? Because according to Way.com's breakdown of complaint data, the 2015 and 2016 Sedonas actually saw a spike in issues, with the 2016 model specifically flagged for turn signals triggering the wrong rear light and headlights randomly shutting off mid-drive, both of which are genuinely dangerous at night. And you'll obviously want to steer clear of the early 2002 and 2003 models too, which re-revs research ties to fire hazard concerns from wiring beneath the driver's seat, along with the 2005 and 2006 years for similar wiring and seatbelt assembly complaints. That 2013 through 2014. Sweet Spot, though, sidesteps all of that drama while still being old enough to be criminally cheap. You can commonly find these in the $4,000 to $6,000 range. And because Kia's badge still carries a bit of a stigma among used buyers who don't know any better, you are basically getting Honda and Toyota levels of durability at Kia levels of pricing. The specific weak point to check is the transmission output sensor. According to Copilot's research, a worn sensor can cause the transmission to unexpectedly shift into third gear at highway speeds, which will absolutely make your heart skip a beat the first time it happens. The good news is, this is a cheap sensor replacement, not a full transmission rebuild. So don't let it scare you off, just budget for it or negotiate the price down if the seller hasn't already fixed it. You'll also want to test every turn signal and headlight function during your test drive, since faulty selector lever switches are a documented recurring complaint across multiple Sedona years. Here's a detail that surprises a lot of shoppers too. According to Kia's published warranty documentation, the Sedona's 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty is not transferable to a second owner, but the shorter 5-year, 60,000-mile basic warranty still is. So ask the seller for paperwork, proving the original registration date before you assume you're covered by anything. So why does this thing actually last? Kia built the Sedona to be boring in the best possible way, anchoring that recommended buying window with a bulletproof 3.5-liter V6. Copilot's research notes, these vans can commonly reach 250,000 miles with consistent maintenance, proving that simple engineering outlasts flash every single time. It is not flashy. It doesn't have a cult following, and that is precisely why it is still one of the most underrated used vehicles in America right now. Speaking of vehicles with a cult following, though, our next pick has one of the most devoted fan bases of any minivan ever built, and it comes from a brand you'd never expect to disappoint you. Rounding into the solid zone. At number 3 is the Honda Odyssey. Let's get the bad news out of the way immediately so you don't accidentally buy a lemon. According to Copilot's research on Odyssey complaint history, you want to steer far clear of the 1999 through 2007 model years. Those generations were plagued by 4-speed and 5-speed transmissions that Honda simply had not figured out yet, with total transmission failure being disturbingly common once these vans crossed 100,000 miles. You'll also want to skip the 2014 model year, which CarSmite's research calls the dark sheep of the 4th generation, thanks to shuddering transmission behavior and variable cylinder management problems that triggered a class action lawsuit, and the 2018 model year, which vehicle history notes racked up 9 recalls and 238 complaints, a 10-fold jump over the previous year. Now for the good news, because there is plenty of it. Your target years are 2012 and 2013, or alternatively 2015 through 2017. Vehicle history specifically calls out the 2017 Odyssey as essentially flawless, noting it carries the lowest average annual maintenance cost of any Odyssey year at just $296, alongside 0 recalls and only 19 complaints filed with NHTSA despite over 100,000 units sold. Copilot's research adds that most well-maintained Odysseys from this window comfortably exceed 250,000 miles, with some owners reporting well past 300,000. Consumer Reports backs this up independently too, with owner satisfaction surveys repeatedly placing the 2012 through 2017 Odyssey among the top-rated used minivans for predicted reliability, awarding it 4 out of 5 circles in categories like engine, transmission, and in-car electronics, categories where plenty of rivals stumble. Because these are still relatively newer used vehicles, expect to find them right around the $6,000 mark once mileage climbs into the 130 to 160,000 mile range. So shop patiently and you'll land a genuine gem. The specific weak point worth inspecting is the Variable Cylinder Management System, sometimes called VCM, along with the motor mounts. Owners on forums like Grassroots Motorsports have described VCM-related oil consumption concerns severe enough to prompt aftermarket VCM deleter installations. So ask whether the seller has had any oil consumption issues and check the dipstick yourself before buying. So why does the Odyssey genuinely outlast modern SUVs? The 3.5-liter V6 is a proven workhorse engine. Honda's engineering reputation is earned rather than marketed, and RepairPal ranks the Odyssey at 3.5 out of 5 for reliability, placing it third among all minivans on the market. This is the van SUV shoppers wish they considered before signing that lease. All right, quick favor before we get into our final 2 picks, because these last 2 are absolute legends. If you've made it this far, smash that like button right now. It seriously helps more people find this video, and if you haven't already, go ahead and hit subscribe too. Now let's get into the weird one. Egg rolling its way to number 2 is the Toyota Previa. If you know, you know. If you don't, buckle up because the Previa is one of the strangest and most impressive engineering feats Toyota ever slapped a minivan badge onto. Our recommended window is the entire 1991 through 1997 production run, specifically the supercharged models, sometimes badged SC, with the optional all-track all-wheel drive system. Why the whole run instead of a narrow window? Because unlike almost every other van on this list, the Previa doesn't really have a bad year. It simply has an age problem, since even the newest one is now approaching 3 decades old. Here's what makes it special. Toyota mounted the engine in the middle of the vehicle, underneath the front seats, giving the Previa a nearly 50-50 weight distribution that is basically unheard of in a minivan. According to Edmunds' owner reviews, drivers frequently report mileage well beyond 200,000 miles with minimal issues. And one particularly devoted Cars.com reviewer described putting 500,000 miles on their Previa before the transmission finally gave out, adding that the van will keep running forever with basic maintenance. That is not a typo. 500,000 miles from a minivan. Because these are old, oddball, and genuinely misunderstood by most used car shoppers who assume anything from the 90s is junk, you can regularly find a clean, well-documented Previa SC for somewhere between $3,000 and $6,000, which is an absolutely absurd amount of engineering per dollar. Here's some trivia that makes it even cooler. According to Toyota's own historical archives, only a small fraction of Previas sold in the United States came equipped with the supercharged all-track all-wheel drive setup we're recommending, which makes tracking one down part of the fun, and explains why enthusiast forums treat a clean example like a genuine unicorn. The weak point here is very specific, the supercharger itself. According to Justin Swear's mechanic guidance, a Previa supercharger typically lasts over 100,000 miles with proper care, but it requires manual oil top-offs through a tiny dedicated dipstick, and owners on the Toyota Nation forum have documented internal gasket leaks that cause that oil to disappear faster than expected. If you're shopping for one, ask directly whether the seller has ever checked or topped off the supercharger oil, because if the answer is a blank stare, that's a red flag. You'll also want to check for rust around the rear wheel wells if the van spent time in snowbelt states. So why does it last? Beyond the clever mid-engine layout, the 2.4-liter engine underneath is famously overbuilt, and the whole platform was engineered in an ERA when Toyota was arguably at the peak of its reputation for bulletproof reliability. It's quirky, it's rare, and it will absolutely make every SUV owner at your kid's soccer practice do a double take. But even the mighty Previa has to bow to the true king of this list, taking the crown as king. At number 1 is the Toyota Sienna. Look, this isn't even close. And if you've spent any time researching used minivans, you probably saw this coming from a mile away. The Sienna is, without exaggeration, considered the most reliable minivan sold in America, and unlike some of the other entries on this list, it barely even needs a "years to avoid" warning label because it's that consistent. That said, let's be precise, because precision is how you avoid a bad purchase. Steer clear of the 2004 through 2007 model years. According to Copilot's complaint research, the 2004 model year alone racked up the highest complaint volume of any Sienna ever produced, dominated by body and paint issues, while the 2007 model year is singled out for high repair costs paired with problems showing up at surprisingly low mileage. Your ideal buying window instead is the 2011 through 2016 range, with CarGurus specifically highlighting 2015 and 2016 as the most reliable of the third-generation Siennas. That is thanks to their robust 6-speed automatic transmission, right before Toyota introduced a more troublesome 8-speed unit in 2017 that CarGurus warns can develop harsh shifting issues and premature wear. Because the Sienna holds its reputation so well, it also tends to hold a slightly higher resale price than some of the vans on this list. But don't let that scare you off. Once mileage crosses the 150,000 mark, which for a Sienna is basically still middle-aged, you can regularly find 2011 through 2013 models sitting comfortably under $6,000, especially on the lower CE and LE trims that most SUV shoppers overlook entirely because they're not chasing leather seats and a moonroof. The weak point to check is the power sliding door system. According to CarGurus, this is such a well-known failure point that Toyota issued an actual recall for it. And even after the fix, replacement cables remain an expensive repair if they eventually wear out again. The good news is, you can simply switch the doors to manual operation if you want to sidestep the issue entirely, and the mechanical heart of the vehicle remains untouched either way. You'll also want to have a mechanic check the water pump on higher mileage examples, since seals in this component are known to weaken and leak coolant over time. So why does the Sienna dominate this entire list? CarBiz's research describes the 3.5-liter V6 in these years as a proven workhorse capable of easily surpassing 200,000 miles with basic fluid changes and maintenance. And RepairPal backs that up hard, scoring the Sienna 3.5 out of 5 for reliability, while noting owners spend an average of just $554 a year on repairs, well below the average for comparable vehicles. One more stat worth knowing before we wrap up. According to Toyota's own press materials, the Sienna was for a long stretch the only minivan in America offered with factory all-wheel drive on higher trims, a feature borrowed straight from the Previa's playbook decades earlier, and Consumer Reports owner surveys consistently rank the 2011 through 2016 Sienna's predicted reliability at 4 or 5 out of 5 circles across nearly every category they track. That is a used minivan, bought for a fraction of a new SUV's down payment, that will comfortably outsurvive whatever crossover your neighbor just financed for 6 years. So there you have it. 7 forgotten minivans that will make almost any new SUV on the road look fragile by comparison, all sitting there, ignored for under $6,000. One last piece of advice before you go shopping. According to CarGurus' used vehicle marketplace data, minivan listings in general sit on the lot noticeably longer than SUV listings in the same price range, which means sellers are often more willing to negotiate. So don't be afraid to make a lowball offer, especially on anything that's been sitting for more than a month. If this video saved you from making an expensive mistake, or better yet, pointed you toward your next ride, click on the next video right there on your screen and make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the next one. See you there.